Good morning. My name is DM Rawlings. I am the 10-Minute DM. I am an experienced Forged in the Dark GM, and I would like to offer some advice to you 10 minutes at a time. So today I want to ask the question, does Candela Obscura have to be horror? So I want to start off this entire thing by pulling your attention to page 2 of the core book in Candela Obscura that says the following. There are only a few core rules within this world that should not change. That is to say, when reading through the rest of this book, remember, this is your game. In nearly every case, you may pick and choose from the available rules and lore to provide the best possible experience for everyone at your table. That said, there are some tenets to abide by in order to navigate this strange place. So long as the following rules remain intact, you are playing the truth of Candela Obscura. And what are these rules? Well, the rules of the world on page 3 talk about the setting and things and the flair that these things exist. The rules of magic tell us about bleed and how it corrupts objects and things. And the rules of Candela Obscura say that we are investigators, part of an organization that is trying to make the world a better place by solving occult problems. What's more interesting to me, though, is what's not in those rules. Nowhere here does it say that Candela Obscura has to be horror, and thus by extension, you, dear watcher, can, while still fitting within the truth of the game, make it whatever you want to be. This is important because I've read a lot of feedback on various subreddits and Twitter and Discord channels and whatnot, where people are saying, horror isn't really for me, and thus Candela Obscura is not really for me. What I would say is that Candela Obscura is whatever you want to make it. Horror is a dial that we as GMs can adjust. Even non-horror genres can have horror-like elements, and horror games run a gamut between mild psychological trauma to splatterfest. And based on our session zeros, we have the authority to make the kind of game that fits what our players want to play. We can invite more people to try fiction-first approaches to gaming. So, I'm sure what you're thinking is, if not horror, then what? And let's be honest here, most of the book is horror-coded. Horror was clearly the primary intent when Spencer and Rowan wrote that book. When Taliesin speaks about Candela Obscura, he talks about separating cosmic horror from Lovecraft. So if we plan to run this game not as horror, then what options do we have? We want to maintain the core. We're about supernatural investigators. We're protectors of humanity. We're part of an organization. The world doesn't know about the supernatural. So I ask you, how many TV shows or movies can you name that share a very similar premise? How about Men in Black, Warehouse 13, The Magicians, sort of, The Magi from The Mummy in 1999, homework assignment for everyone. Go watch The Mummy, even if you've seen it before. It's one of my favorites. Stuff like SCP Foundation, Control the video game, The X-Files, kind of, Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense, that's from Hellboy, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, other tabletop RPGs like External Containment Bureau or Bump in the Dark or Triangle Agency. This list is extensive, and you may have noticed that none of those are strictly horror. So what other genres stand out to me? Well, the first is thriller. Thrillers tend to be action-oriented. They often involve crime or espionage. Tension comes from the danger that the characters are in and not from some grander sense of horror. It's not some fear of the unknown. Candela Obscura as a thriller likely involves kicking down more doors, chasing villains that are using magic for ill-gotten gains, fighting monsters directly, walking away from explosions. It's up-tempo. It's in-your-face action. As an organization, Candela is likely more like an MI6. The stake of your assignments are likely going to be higher. The action involves extravagant set pieces, and the adventure is probably a lot more campy. Your characters are just more heroic. They shrug off injuries more quickly, or they take less of them. You're not handing out marks as often. They are more capable. They're more pulpy. They're over the top. But then again, so are the bad guys. Or what about mysteries? Mysteries are about discovery. unraveling clues, determining connections. The tension comes from knowing that the killer is going to strike again, or that things are going to get worse. If you're not quick enough, you'll have a bad time. Candela as a mystery likely involves talking to suspects, investigating crime scenes, researching ancient texts in old libraries, disproving motives, having that great parlor scene, and a lot of things that you might normally do in a Candela Obscura game without the trappings of horror. Mysteries are a slow burn. Candela as an organization is more likely to appear like a government agency, or maybe a detective agency. Maybe it's more like a police procedural, or maybe like a locked room mystery. It's less about action, more about discovery, and the assignments are generally more long-term. Your characters are going to focus on being more perceptive. They excel at finding clues. Combat is short and dangerous, and their enemies are influential or hard to take down even if you know they're guilty. So, in closing, remember, you have the power to crank the level of horror in your Candela game wherever you'd like it to be. It's still true to the original game. It's written right there on page 2. Spencer told you you can do it. You can make Candela Obscura the kind of game that you want to play, even if that involves departing entirely from the vibes in the book, taking it to a whole new setting, and making that game your own. I have been DM Rawlings, your 10-minute DM, and if you've enjoyed what you've seen so far, hit the subscribe button, share this video. Thank you very much.